And while we use them, I'm going to give you a very quick example, but I highly recommend that you sign up for our Security Fundamentals Academy to learn all these fundamentals in other use case scenarios. So a port, simply put, it can be an entryway into a service or a server over a network, right? So when we're over here, when you type in onlinesecurity.com, your computer is or your network, your router is interacting with Oline's web server, right? The reason you're able to get to our website, the reason you're able to look at the web pages and all the classes is because we have a port open, port 443, probably more than likely, open on that web server for you to access that system. Right, there's a port open there, right? So what we're gonna be doing is scanning different servers, different systems for open ports. Why do we care about open ports? Because a port can be an attack surface. It can be a way an attacker enters your network, right? A way an attack or something an attacker can use to compromise you. Any type of vulnerability can be an attack surface for these attackers, right? If you have an open port, let's say port 445, right? And I'm on your network and I create some type of malware that uses that open port to replicate itself onto other servers on your network. In other words, you have this network of systems right here, and you all have port 445 open, and I create some type of malware that goes from this system to this system to this system and does stuff on each system because you have that port open. Well, this attack surface needs to be closed. You're going to close it, or you're going to make sure people have some type of authentication framework to get from system to system. You're going to do something. So that's why we care about port scans, so we can identify those vulnerabilities, identify ports that are open that don't need to be. All right, so let's jump into it, y'all. So first things first, we're gonna log into this box. This is our Kali box. Don't forget, you can't use the shortcuts on Kali, right? We can't use the text shortcuts over here. So username root, password, capital P, A, $, W, 0RD. Okay, once this is open, we're just gonna start using Nmap. Nmap is one of my favorite tools when it comes to pen testing. It's, as we've said several times now, it's a port scanner. We're going to use it to scan for open ports. You can do more than port scan with Nmap. You can actually use it to do some vulnerability scans, right, with the right plugins. The way you can set your port scans can be a little fun too. All right, so let's open up this terminal right here. And don't forget, we can't copy and paste over here in Kali. All right, so the terminal's open. The first thing we're gonna do is scan this network. All right, we're gonna scan this IP address. I'll explain what it's doing in a second. Let's just type it in for now. So Nmap, we're gonna start the Nmap command, and we want Nmap to scan this target 203.0.113.1. We're doing a fast scan, so this is only going to scan 50 to 100 ports. I can't remember exactly how much, but I think it's going to scan just 100 open ports on the system. We're going to do this stealth scan, the SS. You really don't need it because by default, Nmap is running that, but we're just going to put it there because we also want Nmap to, if it finds a port that's open, try to tell us what service is running on that port. So if this web server has port 80 open, can Nmap tell us what program is running on that port? What program, what service is using port 80? So that's what the SV is going to be for. Then the -O, we want Nmap to try to tell us the operating system information, if it knows what operating system, if it's a Windows or Linux. Then -PN, we're telling Nmap not to ping the system before the scan. Uh-oh, what happened? Oh man, I gotta take that over. Alright, hold on. Nmap 203.0.1.3.1-F//SV version operating system. Don't ping. And there's a special way you can save files or output your results on Nmap is with this -ON. There's also a -OX, -OG. They're different file formats. Or you could do -OA. But we're just gonna save it with the -ON. That means Nmap readable. It's an Nmap format. I mean, you really don't need this. You can just save it as a regular file. But we're just gonna stick to the instructions. So we're just gonna hit enter. So Nmap is gonna go ahead and do its thing. Actually, I'm gonna start this over and I'm gonna throw verbosity on it so we can see what it's doing, because it might take a while. I'm just gonna add some V's on there so we can see what Nmap is doing. Alright, so right now Nmap is just doing some scans. It's loading up its scripts at our target. Right, you can see it's doing that stealth scan that we just talked about, the SS scan. Right, SS right here. It's trying to do it stealthy. What that means is, you know, when you're doing a TCP three-way handshake, there's 3 flags. You're gonna send a SYN flag. They're gonna respond back with a SYN-ACK flag. And then we respond back with an ACK flag. Well, with this SS scan, this stealth scan, we're only sending SYN packets. Right? We're not gonna respond back with the ACK packet. We're just gonna send another SYN packet. Alright, so that's what this is doing. It's supposed to be stealthy. We're not completing that connection. Alright, so we found some ports that are open. Let's see, it's only one port open over here, port 25. Alright, it shows you the port number. It's using 25. You see the state, it's open. The service, that's SMTP, that's what we use to send mail. Alright, and if you're not familiar with SMTP and all the ports and protocols, I highly recommend that you register for that Security Fundamentals program, because we dive into that in way more detail. So let's go to the next step. So here they want us to they want us to find the word open in that file that we saved. Alright, so that's just gonna look for the open port. So we're gonna grab open the file that we saved, borderscan.nmap. That's the file that we stored this output to, right? That's one of the reasons you would store output to a file, so you can grep. Remember, grep, we're using that to find stuff. We can just find the word open in that file instead of getting all of that information. So here we go. Right, what's open? Port 25. It's using SMTP. Well, ports are discovered as being open on this target. That's going to be 25. We're going to score that. All right, now we're going to look for the operating system information. All right, so we're going to grab OS out of that file. All right, the operating system information is FreeBSD. All right, we're going to score that. Boom, go on to the next one. All right, so we're going to do the same thing over here, but we're going to switch the network that we're on. Right, we're going to switch this Ethernet connection. All right, to make more sense of that, I just want you to type in ifconfig real quick and take a note of your IP address. It's 203.0.113.66. Okay, so we're gonna switch our Ethernet connections. We're gonna switch it to vGuess. All right, we're gonna do the same thing on that system. We're gonna scan that network, scan the system on that network for threat vectors, attack vectors, right? Open ports that we can use to compromise. But before we gotta go to resources, switch this ETH to guess. All right, now we're back over here. Let's go back to the instructions. We got to refresh our connection over here. We're going to do that with the DH client command. All right, so this command is going to refresh our connection, right? It's going to give us well, pretty much refresh that connection that we just switched. Right, with updated IP information. Right, so we're going to communicate with the new DHCP server. Right, so if you don't know what all of that means, when you first connect to a network, right, let's say this is us, we have to get an IP address for that network. When you turn your devices on at your home network, you got to talk to your DHCP server, which is built into your router. You got to ask it for an IP address, right? So that's what we're doing right now. We're asking this new DHCP server for an IP address. So if we type in ifconfig again, we see a new IP address, right? Because we're on a new Ethernet connection. All right, cool. So we're gonna do the same thing we did last time. All right, let's score that, make sure it registers that new information. And we're gonna run this same command, but on this IP address. So I'm not gonna type everything in again. I'm just gonna hit the up key a few times. Find that last command I ran. Hit Control A to get to the front of the line. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, right? If you want to, you could just hit the left key to get all the way to the front. Doesn't matter. But you're gonna change this IP. All right, this is the IP we're gonna scan now, and we're gonna give it a new file name. It's gonna be guess. I'm gonna hit Control E to get to the end of the line. You don't have to, you can just keep hitting that right key if you want to. And we're gonna run this. I'm gonna turn verbosity off this time. Now this scan right here, it's gonna take a while. All right, this one takes a while. So, let me see. I don't think I remember what was opened on it. Yeah, this scan is gonna take a while. It's kind of blowing me right now. Yeah, so what I'll do is we'll cut this part of the video out, and once this is done, we'll continue. We're back. So that didn't take as long as I expected it to take, but it took long enough. So scan results are done. Next thing we're gonna do is grep for open ports instead of looking through that entire file or trying to scroll up and reading everything. We're gonna hit enter right here. Right, grep, open, guess scan, nmap. What ports? We got a few ports open. We got open since on 8,443.80, and that is open. So what is the name of the service found on several open ports? go, I can't spell. Cool. Now we're gonna grep for the operating system. We got FreeBSD again. Score that. All right, sweet. We're gonna do the same thing. We're going to scan another network, switch our Ethernet again. We're gonna scan a different network to see what its attack surface has to show. So we're gonna switch this to VLAN clients. All right, same thing, we're gonna refresh our connection. I'm gonna hit Control R and start typing in that command that I wrote, and it should show me. I'm just gonna hit enter. All right, Control R shows you previously typed commands. If you just start typing it in and then hit enter, and then it runs it for you. You don't have to do that. You can just retype it entirely if you want to. I didn't feel like it. All right, so we're gonna do the same command again. Let's see what we're gonna name this file though. It's a new IP address, a new file name, server. It's the file name server scan. And a new IP. .1.16.2. Run it. So this says it might take up to 2 minutes. It might not. But we'll see how long this takes. So what are we doing, right? We're doing port scans against different systems on different networks. We're trying to identify open ports, if there are any ports to be open, right? If those ports are open, they can be used to compromise that system or network, right? We can use that open port and create some type of payload that abuses that open port. Right now, you're probably thinking, well, you said O-Line Security's web server has a port open. Yes, certain ports are going to be open. We're gonna have certain ports open because they're necessary for certain services to work. But just because a port is open doesn't mean it's automatically going to be a vulnerable service. No, right? Because we can encrypt that open port. Establishing encryption on that open port allows that data to remain confidential. You can also implement some type of authentication, right? But if you don't need that port open, then you're gonna close it. Right? But if you do need the port open, right, keep the port open, but make sure you have the right security controls around it to support that open connection. All right. So what services are discovered to be accessible? Here are the ports right here. I mean, we could do a grep, but it's right here in front of us. I don't see NTP. NTP uses 123. I don't see FTP. FTP uses 20 or 21. I see HTTP on 80. I don't see RDP, I don't think. RDP uses 33. 89. I see SMTP, that's 25. MSRPC, 135. Microsoft DS, 445. SQL is NFS here. Hold on, let me see. I see IMAP. I'm not seeing NFS. Just to make sure I'm not tripping. I see SMTP, HTTP, RPC. IMAP, Microsoft DS, SMTP, Mount D. Alright, yeah, I do see it. Mount D, MySQL, HTTP. Alright, cool. I don't see RDP. Alright, RDP is not there, NTP is not there, FTP is not there. Alright, operating system. Let's grep for that. Grep OS server dash okay. This is using Microsoft Windows Server, right? It had to be a Windows Server because it's using 445, right? It has SMB running. Alright, so next, what is a threat vector? A threat vector, a pathway that could support an intrusion attempt? Yes. Right? It is a pathway that can support an intrusion attempt, right? It can be used to compromise a system or a network, or to exploit a system or network. What is an attack surface? The listing of a port? No. Simply having the ports listed out does not make it an attack surface. It's the collection of exposed vulnerabilities. What Nmap parameter option performs a scan which displays service identification? That's SV. It's going to show you the the version that the service is using. Where can threats originate? Everywhere. What are two primary response options to the discovery in an open port hosting an insecure service? We'll close it if we can. We're not going to require more complex passwords, apply them, and enable encryption. Right, we're going to enable encryption, right? 443, right? O-Line Security has 443 open. Right, that web server has 443 open, but the data going to you and back to O-Line Security's web server is encrypted. It's using port 443. Right, HTTPS is a secure port. Why? Because it's being encrypted. So encryption is definitely a key thing. We want to make sure that if it's an open port, that the service is being encrypted. That's probably the most important. Right, if you don't need that insecure service, close it.